similar.
I would agree, Dave. Absolutely.
We've talked a lot of theory here. So have we got some I would assume we've got some examples to talk about, and we'll actually walk through how this process worked with some customers. Does that sound like a good next step?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
So the first one I think we'll talk a little bit about was actually a joint customer. We actually had an opportunity to work on a customer that was an evolved customer, and we worked with Paytech to actually do the analysis. And this is a health services company based in Alexandria, Virginia. So you want to talk a little, Michael, about sort of how the process worked? You know, we called you guys up and said we had some needs and a customer that was really looking to deploy a new app. And what did they tell you about the process?
Well, that's a great segue into this because we actually partnered very closely with John, who's also on this call. And the opportunity here was that the health services company had contracted for a very extensive electronic records management system for their files. And the issue they were running into is that their current infrastructure had been pieced together as they've grown their organization. So the main site had one service provider for voice, one service provider for data, and each one of the smaller sites or remote sites had the same configuration. So they weren't gaining a lot of efficiencies by using one network and using one provider. What they were also seeing is that their current bandwidth capabilities would not allow for the software technology and the ASP to move those records for them. So here's a situation where they've got a business need to run their business more effectively. There's a software or an ASP application that's essential to running this organization, but their network and infrastructure could not support that upgrade. So, you know, we were in a situation where there was a couple other organizations they had gone to, and to talk about the network assessment, it was rather humorous actually when we sat down with them on our first meeting after doing all of the discovery we had for network assessment. The CFO and CEO of this organization looked at us and said, "Have we committed to going with you yet?" And I said, "Well, you know, you have not, but our goal here is to make sure that we do a comprehensive enough overview so that you feel the confidence to move forward with Paytech." And indeed they did, and that's a great story for us, but more importantly, it was the right network and right configuration for them. So with Paytech, to talk about the actual application, with this right here, they have 3 remote sites and a main site. They have a network that connects to what we call our MPLS cloud, which is a private internet backbone that Paytech has quality of service on throughout the U.S. So each one of these connected sites access our network, and then they access the public internet and then the public switch telephone network, or PSTN, through that cloud, through that Paytech network. And this does a lot of things for their organization. First of all, file transfer doesn't go over the internet cloud, so it's far more efficient. Secondly is that they can do voice traffic now from site to site and not hit the public switch telephone network. It's actually almost it's a voice packet that's transferred from router to router. So there's no toll calling or any kind of calling cost associated with calling in between their offices. And the third thing, and the most important thing for them, is that it gave them the bandwidth at each site so that they actually implement that electronic records management system so they could actually provide better services to their patient. And that's how we talk about understanding their business. It's not about throwing bandwidth at this. It's understanding what the end game is for that organization. And in this case, it's to serve their client better. So we were able to facilitate that by, in this case, building it a little bit better. Yes, we did throw additional bandwidth at this. Yes, we did put new hardware in it. But that's because that's what the business need was in this case.
Right. And they went through the exact process that we talked about, right? The 5 steps and the interviews and providing the information, and we did that all at no charge to the customer to figure out where they needed to go.
Yes, and you know, quite frankly, in an organization like this, that's necessary. Someone that doesn't do that discovery and analysis, and we had spoken to not only Evolve, we spoke to the customer, and in this case we spoke to the ASP to understand what their needs were in terms of connectivity and the way they connected to the health services company. And we also spoke to the current hardware vendor that they were getting their firewalls through to make sure that whatever we plugged in there actually worked and actually could be deployable. Without that kind of comprehensive view, Dave, it would have been very easy for us to just put together a couple, you know, T1s for data and it not work in the end. And that's not a win-win we're looking for.
Right. And in the end, we were actually able to do a lot of this all as a service. They were able to get the new hardware they needed as well as all the services bundled into their monthly fee, which made things a lot easier for them to move to the new solution.
So that is correct. And in this case, actually, they did have to increase their monthly spend, but the amount of efficiency we were able to gain made that increase much less than it would have had they forklifted everything they had and not done it this way. So it was a scalable solution for them that was something that they could get their arms around, and it was indeed the right business case for them to go and spend an additional 10 to 15%.
Right. And again, they were able to move on and do the electronic medical records and such that they needed to do, which they were concerned they weren't going to be able to do. So that was certainly a great next step on this.
Yeah, and the other thing too is that their filing system is a neat little story for how this assessment kind of plays into their business. Is that records management room was an entire space that could have been used to see another patient. So they've actually gotten more efficient with the way they can handle and give health care to their folks now because they have additional space to do that.
Right. So they regained some office space, which certainly has real value in today's day and age.
Exactly, and they could better serve their clients. So it was a great story.
Yeah. So you've got another example that you want to talk about as well, right?
Yeah, I do actually. If we have time for it, I'd like to talk about this one because it's a single site location. But this is a great example of where throwing bandwidth at the problem isn't necessarily the right way to do it. Especially going through the network assessment process with this organization, they had 2 voice circuits that were specifically for voice only. They had 2 additional circuits that were for data only. And they were seeing that their bandwidth needs had grown, but they were, again, deploying more of their workforce over a telecommuting or on-site deployment of their folks. So what we saw here is that their voice needs had changed and had gone down, and their data needs had gone up. And the way this network was built was that the voice and data were separate entities. And with this organization, what we were able to do is we were able to actually double their bandwidth availability by using the existing circuits and just re-provisioning them. So we weren't bringing out additional circuits. What we were saying is instead of having strictly voice circuits and strictly data circuits, we're going to bring a Paytech product called Dynamic IP in, and we're going to allow you to use 6 megs or 4 T1s worth of bandwidth when no one's on the phone. And then when someone picks up the phone, we're going to give you a PRI handoff so it plugs into your phone system just as it does today, but it's going to slightly drop the amount of bandwidth you have available. So for every call, they're going to drop by about 50 kbs. So by doing it this way, they found a much more efficient use of what they had, and in this case, we were actually able to save them about 20% over what they were spending with us because we didn't have to bring out additional circuits. We just used what they had more efficiently.